What up, Wizards? It's Dev and the Chicken, SBMTG. We like it a magic. And you know what? I don't know if you've heard the big news, but Assassin's Creed Universes Beyond coming real soon, everybody. And I, personally, I got to let you know, could not care less about that than I currently do. But if you do care about Ezio and all of his friends and stuff, because I really only know Ezio, sorry about that. But if you do care about this product and you're psyched for it to come out, that's totally fine, man. People should like what they like. I'm not going to yuck your yum or yank your yargle or whatever people are saying on the internet nowadays. You like things that I don't like. I like things you don't like. We can all get along. It ain't got nothing to do with me. And you know what? These days I'm learning more and more to feel that way about Universes Beyond as a general concept. I kind of revolted against the idea at first, but I'd be a big fat liar if I didn't say some of these things kind of interested me, and I'm already those first two things, so I got to be careful here. I mean, even us old school players can't pretend that we weren't all sitting around in 1996 talking about what a Gandalf card might look like, and then 30 years later, we actually got the set, and it was like unanimously agreed to be amazing, because it kind of was. And a year from now, we got that Final Fantasy one coming out that I have to admit to you and myself and the boy inside of me, I cannot wait for. I want my Sephiroth card, and honestly, admit that you do too. But real talk, like the biggest reason that I've come around on Universes Beyond a little bit is because they're going to happen whether any of us like it or not, so we might as well get on board. Choo choo, baby. I mean, you know what they say. Sometimes when the storm is coming, you might as well run out in the middle of the yard with a piece of rebar over your head. Nobody says that, and you shouldn't do it, but I just felt like it was a good analogy for what we're doing today, because today we're going to talk about the top 3 Universes Beyond that I actually want. And I'm your favorite Magic Channel's favorite Magic Channel. Best believe that the professor go bananas for my deck tech. And we're back, like the video. You know, the first thing I gotta say is that it was really tough just picking 3 of these. I could have easily done 5 or even 10, but I really didn't want to make that many cards. That's right, it's one of those videos where Dev makes cards and you get to make fun of them. And so in the end, everybody's happy, right? But making the cards isn't the hardest part of the video. That's a load of fun, man. I have a blast doing that, and honestly, I don't care how broken you guys tell me the cards are. That's part of the fun for me and everybody else. No, the challenge here is just narrowing it down to 3 IPs, I hate that term, but I feel like would fit well in a video like this, because I feel like at least 2 of them have to be large-scale media properties that a lot of people would be excited by, right? And even if you don't indulge yourself in them, you're aware of what they are and could get potentially excited for them, right? But that leaves me one spot on the list, if you're following along here, that allows me to be a little weird and kooky and esoteric and maybe bring up a property here that most other YouTubers wouldn't in my situation. So with that in mind, my first pick, I guess, my number 3, is Stephen King. That's right, secret's out. I'm one of those people. Look, I haven't read much King in the last over a decade or so, but I used to be a real big fan of his short stories and a lot of his novels for that matter, and I do think that some of the worlds that he's built in his work over the years would translate really well to Magic the Gathering. And when I say world building, I kind of literally mean it. There are a lot of locations throughout King's work that I think would go really well as Magic cards. Plenty of lands that work for this category, right? Like a Salem's Lot card, a legendary land that comes into play tap. You can tap it for a black mana, but the catch is, whenever a vampire enters under your control, you get to untap it. So you can cast multiple vampires, you get vampire tokens a lot in one turn, you get to untap it a bunch of times. I think that would be a cool card. But now that I'm showing you the first card in the video, I should probably go ahead and make the point that this video is not to say like this exact card should exist, I want this card or I'll be mad. No, it's just to like explore the design space of these different worlds we're going to talk about today in a little bit of detail and think of some things you could do with these locations and characters and artifacts and blah blah blah. So again, I don't need exactly this card, but if I saw a Salem's Lot card in Magic the Gathering, I would be unironically kind of excited about that. So I wanted to explore like what a card like that would look like. Same with like Pet Cemetery here, which I don't actually think is very good. It's a land that reanimates your dudes, but you have to pay like 4 mana and tap it and sack a guy. So I wanted to nerf it. You let me know if it's broken or not good enough, because I'm still not actually sure. But there's also the Overlook Hotel. There's a ton of different locations throughout King's different works, and I think the Overlook Hotel is one of the more iconic from The Shining, right? This is a legendary land too. You can tap it for a colorless, and you can also choose to leave it tapped during your untap step. You can pay 5, tap it, and gain control of a creature that but you also have to sacrifice a creature, but you gain control of a creature an opponent controls until the Overlook untaps. It should probably also say until it leaves play, but one way or the other. Again, the card doesn't have to look exactly like this, but I think you understand where I'm going with the flavor on this. But obviously, apart from all the locales you can pull from out of this universe, there's also plenty of iconic characters that have actually kind of breached their way into the mainstream at this point. You know, I made cards for Annie Wilkes, pause the video, she's from Misery. I made a card for Pennywise, pause the video, because you basically have to do that. I think he's a little underpowered for his casting costs, but whatever. But probably my favorite character in like all of Stephen King novels is actually the shopkeeper from Needful Things. He has a name. It's Leland Gaunt. I know that because I'm a nerd and I've read Needful Things like 4 times, but still, the shopkeeper from Needful Things. Now, honestly, I just kind of ended up liking this guy's design a lot more than I did Pennywise or Annie, which is why I'm showcasing him here. I'm sorry, I just kind of really ended up liking this dude. He's 2 mana and 1 and a black for a 2/2 legendary demon avatar. At the beginning of your upkeep, you're going to choose one of these things. You either draw a card and then discard 3 cards, or you have each opponent lose 2 life, but then you lose 3 life. Or you can just have everybody sacrifice a creature. Now, if you're trying to get rid of the shopkeeper that way, whenever he dies, he's going to enter the battlefield tapped under target opponent's control. I like a couple of things about this idea. You can either target an opponent specifically to get this thing, and then maybe that'll hurt them somehow. That's nice. Or you can just like sacrifice him and get him off your back, and it doesn't really matter who he goes to. You know, there's a couple of things I like about that dies trigger, but for the most part, he's going to get you some value when you need him, and you can even keep him all game for that matter if he keeps getting you the things that you need. That's the name of the book. But if there's one Stephen King world that he's built over the years that works perfectly for Magic the Gathering, it's the Dark Tower series. We could do a secret lair just based off the Dark Tower. Screw all of his other work, but I do want to see cards for his other work, honestly. Let's do that. But yeah, again, if you just wanted to focus solely on the Dark Tower, I think a lot of people would be super into that. So I just couldn't do a Stephen King entry without doing Roland. Also couldn't do this video without making an Orzhov card. You know how I am. I have a problem. Now, Roland here is 3 mana, 1 a black and a white for a 3/4 legendary human rogue with vigilance and menace. Pretty good stats, honestly, just by himself. But whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, he's going to get a quest counter. Once he gets his 5th quest counter, you're just going to take all the quest counters off of him and then create the Tower, a legendary land with tap, sack a creature, add 3 mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool. Is this one busted? I kind of wanted Roland to be a little bit busted. He's unboltable, he's unpushable, uncut downable, whatever, you know, but you can still Doomblade him. No, you can't. He's not. So I don't know. He doesn't die to every removal spell, but he does die to like 98% of them. So I guess there's that. Either way, I don't think this is like too super pushed or anything, and it's kind of a design that I would be looking for in a card like this. I think that you have to have Roland tied to the tower in some way or another, and maybe I'm getting a little bit too Stephen King Vorthos here, but I think that making like Roland transform into the tower or making Roland create the tower through some sort of hardship or trial, like getting quest counters, is a way that I'd like to see this card go. But either way, again, just like I said a couple of entries ago, I just like to see a Roland to Chain Magic card. Let's go. But on to the next one, because I'm honestly not sure how many people want to talk about potential Stephen King Magic cards for the next 30 minutes. I would, but let me know in the comments section. And honestly, our second pick today is one that I do think would have a lot more mass appeal, but I also think there's going to be a lot of people in the comment section who are like, I would much rather see a Stephen King Stephen Lair than this. But know that you're not all people, and I definitely think that a lot more people would be interested in a WWE Universes Beyond. I know that I would be pretty excited for that. Shamelessly. WWE actually had a card game like 20 years ago. I think it was called Raw Deal or something like that. And it was actually kind of awesome. Like you'd pick a superstar at the beginning of the card game and he would kind of be like your commander. They have like different abilities, like different hand sizes and stuff like that. And you would play small moves to build up points to your finishing move, which cost a lot of points or whatever the unit of currency is in that game. It was actually a great game, but there hasn't really been an attempt at bringing WWE into the trading card space since then. And I actually think that we are missing an opportunity by not doing this Universes Beyond. I think it would be incredibly successful, and I think there's a lot more crossover between these two audiences than people realize, than Wizards realizes. Now, of course, you don't have to tell me. I am well aware that I cannot choose this particular topic for this particular video without making an Undertaker card. Don't worry, I did it. Whew! Now this is 4 mana, 1 and 3 black for a 4/4 legendary spirit warlock, and he's got trample and hilariously undying. Do you get it? Now he also can do the tombstone pile driver. That means he can tap to just destroy another target creature, but you can only do that if he has a +1/+1 counter, and of course you can only do it at sorcery speed. Basically the best royal assassin. Also really like how the artwork ended up kind of looking like Ihan Shade. Do you see a Sean Shade from Homelands in there? It's there. Good job on the artwork, Han Park. But either way, again, the Undertaker doesn't have to look exactly like this, but on this card, there is something I kind of do draw the line on, something I really would like to see if we ever get a WWE Universes Beyond, and that is they have their finishing moves. You've been giving names in italics to abilities since like Dungeons and Dragons at this point, like the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms set. Ironically, I almost forgot. I guess it's fittingly, I almost forgot the name of the set, but you have, at this point for the last couple of years, have been giving abilities names on cards in italics. And if you do a WWE UB, that is the perfect excuse to put their finishing moves in italics as ability names. So just keep that in your pocket in case you ever plan on doing it. I actually do really want to see that. Another thing I'd like to see out of this is the partner mechanic used smartly, i.e. tag team partners, right? That can partner with each other and be your commanders. Like the New Day, right? Kofi Kingston over here just cost a green and a white for a 2/2 legendary human warrior that gets +1/+1 for each other creature that you control. And you can Trouble in Paradise. Again, I want their finishing moves to be on the thing. When Kofi enters the battlefield, you may return another creature you control to its owner's hand, and if you do, Kofi's going to fight a creature that you don't control. Did I mention he has Flash, so he's kind of a Selesnya removal spell? That ain't too bad, but obviously he partners with Xavier Woods. Who else would he... He would also partner with Big E. I shouldn't say who else would he partner with. The New Day is 3 guys, but still. Xavier Woods is the one I made a card of. He's Simic colors, a green and a blue for a 2/2 legendary human warrior. And when he enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature you control. But you can also do the up, down, down, which is their tag team finishing maneuver. The Trouble in Paradise is Kofi's singles finishing maneuver. Anyway, I sound like a total nerd here, but I think you knew I was a total nerd. What have the last 8 years been for? Either way, the up, down, down is a single blue mana and a tap from Xavier here to put a creature an opponent controls into its owner's library, 3rd from the top, but you can only play this ability if you control a creature named Kofi Kingston and only as a sorcery. And of course, Xavier partners with Kofi. By the way, in case you don't see how much of a genius I am, you put the creature into its owner's library 3rd from the top. You didn't kill it. You knocked it out and pinned it for a 3 count. Do you see what I did? Do you see how I am such a flavor genius? Anyway, sorry. I actually am tooting my own horn on this one. I just ended up liking the design on these 2 cards so much that I wanted to showcase them in the video. Again, I made more cards for the WWE thing, but these are just 2 of my favorites. But the last card I want to show you for the WWF, WWE, it doesn't matter, portion of the wrestling part of the video is not necessarily a wrestler. Now, there are hundreds of them you could potentially do for Universes Beyond. I'd be excited to see most of them. Give me a Coco Beware card, please. But either way, you could also do instants or sorceries that are moves, right? That'd be pretty easy to do, like the Flying Elbow Drop right here, which is actually a new type of spell in a way. This is a finishing move. This is Gruul colors and an extra mana, so 3 in all for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to itself, a creature you don't control, and that creature's owner. And when an opponent's creature dies this way, you create a treasure token. That's your championship belt right there, baby. But the catch is, this is a finishing move. You can only cast this spell if your opponent is at 10 life or less. Why? I don't know. Flavor? Just seemed like a fun mechanic, and you can probably push this well beyond the bounds of what I've presented here. I just like the idea of finishing moves that are powerful spells that are likely to end the game, but you can only cast them if someone's lost a certain amount of life. Honestly, this could be if either player has lost a certain amount of life, or it could be, you can only cast it if the opponent it targets has 10 or less life. There are multiple ways to word an ability like this, but bottom line, I'd like to see an ability like this. But as much as I'd like to make this entire video about WWE cards, and I really would, I could do an hour-long thing on just that, but we gotta move on to the last thing, which is probably the one that would sell the most, let's be honest, and would have the most mainstream appeal by far, and I don't know if we'll ever get it, but honestly, I'm not sure what's stopping us from getting it. So with that in mind, let's look at number 1 Nintendo. Now, I'm well aware that Pokemon already has a card game, and that's a Nintendo property, right? And we'll talk about that in just a second. But when it comes to greater Nintendo properties at large, I'm not sure why Nintendo itself hasn't really ventured into the trading card space to do. Like, why isn't Mario on a trading card that you can play a game with, or Link, or whatever, you know what I mean? So I just think that Nintendo is fertile ground for a collectible card game, and they haven't really experimented with that. It's kind of surprising that they put all of their eggs in the Smash Brothers basket, and I guess all of their trading card eggs went into the Pokemon basket, but I'd really like to see Mario on a Magic card. Now, Mario, Courageous Plumber here, is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 1/1 human citizen. He is legendary, and when he enters the battlefield or attacks, you get a treasure token. Now, whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you choose one of these things. You either put a flying counter on Mario, or he can get a +1/+1 counter, or he can deal with damage to any target. So you see what we did there, hopefully. Raccoon Wings, and then the second ability is Fire Flower, and then the third ability, I guess, is Mushrooms. I kind of wanted to invent a new creature type for this one and just call him a human plumber, but I felt like a citizen is probably what Wizards would do with this, so we went there with it. Either way, this should probably just grant flying until end of turn, if I'm being honest, but who cares? This is the kind of thing I'd want to see with Mario, sort of an acknowledgement of what a Swiss Army knife of power-ups he can be, and I think you could translate that pretty well into a Magic card, no matter how you do it. It'd also have to be a Link card, and I'm honestly pretty sure you could do like multiple Link cards, because there's the Hero of Time and the Hero of whatever else. There's like 50 of them at this point, but this one is the Hero of Time. He's 1 and a green for a 2/1 legendary Elf Ranger, and as long as he's got any equipment attached to him, he has First Strike and Reach, but if he has 2 or more equipment attached to him, he has Hexproof, and whenever he does combat damage to a player, you just get to search your library for an equipment, put it in your hand, and shuffle up. Honestly, I think there are probably way better ways to design Link. I'm not in love with my own design here, but I do think this is a relatively powerful card that becomes a better Elvish Archer like really, really quickly, and then becomes a Bogle very, very quickly after that. But I don't know how much you want to play with equipments, especially in green. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting call to, make the card this way, because he mostly does rely on equipments to get better as time goes on. But again, there are many ways you could make a Link, and to be honest, I'm kind of really interested to see how you would make your Link in the comments section. And I know that sounds like a farming engagement thing, and like it probably is on some level. I think I'm just trained to do it after 8 years of YouTube, but like I am genuinely interested, because again, I felt like I could have done a little bit better with this Link, and I'd like to see if you can do a little bit better with basically any of these cards. But my favorite of the Nintendo cards that we made was Samus the Voyager. This is 2 mana Izzet colors, a blue and a red for a 2/3 legendary human soldier. I thought human scout for a minute, but I think soldier's probably more correct. Either way, whenever a land card enters the battlefield from your hand, Samus is going to explore. Now, whenever you put 1 or more land cards into your hand from anywhere, you may reveal them, and if you do, Samus is going to get a +1/+1 counter anyway, right? If you explore and you find a land, the creature doesn't get a +1/+1 counter, but I guess Samus is going to get one regardless of whether you find a land off that explore. But if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, then Samus is going to gain tap, Super Missile. I really should have named this ability, just like the wrestling abilities, but basically she can tap until end of turn to deal damage equal to her power to any target. There'd be multiple ways to exploit this ability and get it to trigger more than once per turn, and it'd be a really cool commander for just a couple of mana or whatever. So, I keep saying in this video the card doesn't have to look exactly like this, but I kind of want Samus to be exactly like this. I draw a hard line on this one, Wizard, sorry. Also, I haven't really said this yet on any of these entries, but I'm trying to credit the artist as much as I can when possible. Some of these entries will say unknown. This one just says Flipkart, because that's the site it was being sold on and they claim ownership over it, but I'm sure that somebody actually drew this on like their iPad in Procreate or something like that. So yeah, I could not find the original artist of this piece, just the website that owns the piece and can sell it now, which really bugs me. So if you're out there and you somehow get a hold of this video, I want to let you know this is the coolest art for Samus Aran that I've ever seen in my entire life, and I'm sorry I couldn't credit you. But I've already teased it. We got to talk a little bit about Pokemon here. Now, you might say, hey Dev, there ain't never going to be no Pokemon Magic cards. Did you know there's a Pokemon card game? A lot of people don't know there's a Pokemon card game. Like, yes, of course. I'm well aware of it. I did a whole video about it not long ago. Apparently everyone on YouTube watched it. Thanks for that. But still, I know plenty that Pokemon has a pretty fun card game, to be honest. But still, we're probably not going to see too many Pokemon-themed Magic cards. But I also, to that, say that we already know we're going to get multiple Marvel-themed Magic sets. And Marvel Snap is a game that exists. That's cards and stuff. So, checkmate, jerk. You know, I don't know if that's good enough, honestly, because Pokemon as a card game is probably Magic's biggest competition. But in my opinion, all the more reason for them to do a crossover. I know neither one of those companies think that way, but I'm going to be a sweet summer child for now. For the purposes of this video, I made a Charmander card. Now, this version of Charmander is just a single red mana for a 1/2 lizard with a little bit of fire breathing for a red mana, but when it does combat damage to an opponent, you're going to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then, if it has 2 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you see, it had to evolve into Charmeleon first, but I didn't represent that in a card. That's the first one +1/+1 counter is apparently Charmeleon. But yeah, anyway, when it gets its second +1/+1 counter after it does combat damage, it's going to change into a dragon. It becomes a dragon named Charizard, and it gets another +1/+1 counter, plus a trample counter, plus a flying counter. So in other words, you got a 1-drop that ends up being a 4/5 Flample with fire breathing. Not too shabby, but I don't think this is the way they would do this card, because I'm pretty sure they could not resist getting artwork for both Charmander and Charizard on the same Magic card and making it full art and fancy and shiny, and maybe it's even got a serial number, who knows, and it's just the fanciest thing. You realize that if Magic the Gathering put out a Charizard card and made it serialized and fancy and foil and stuff, it would be like the 3rd most expensive Magic card of all time. If not the most, I don't know. It's actually kind of tough to say. But either way, I felt like I had to make another version of Charmander because there is no way that Wizards would ever let this happen without making this card be a transform card. So with that in mind, I basically made a Ragavan. You'll see. It's a single red mana for a 1/2 lizard with fire breathing, just like the last one. But when it does combat damage to opponent, you transform it. That's all it takes. And it transforms into Charizard, which is a 4/4 Flample with fire breathing. So turn 2, you could have a 4/4 Flample with fire breathing, and that is a completely fair Magic card by my estimation. Look, if Ragavan can exist, maybe this can too. This is by far the most broken card in the entire video, because if you go first and your opponent doesn't have a blocker or removal, then you probably win the game. But I don't know, this can be taken out by most removal spells or even another creature blocking, you know. I don't know, it might not be as dangerous as it looks, but you know, when you can get a 4/4 flying trample on turn 2, I'm pretty sure you're doing okay in that game of Magic. If you're not, then we've come too far, to be honest. So I'm well aware this is probably the most broken card in the video, but again, I don't trust Wizards to not make a broken Charizard if they ever have the chance. And with that, that's all I got for this one. Like I said, I wanted to do like 10 of these, and I really wanted to do like honorable mention TMNT, but it didn't really get there. I just kind of ran out of spoons for making cards and such. I just, you know, but again, honestly, now it's on you. Now you get to do the fun thing and tell me how dumb and broken and busted my cards are, or how bad my cards are, or how if you were able to design this card, how you would have done it, or, oh, there's a Stephen King secret lair. Let's do a Randall Flagg card or something, and just put it in the comments. I don't know. The comments are for me like the most fun parts of these videos where I make cards. So just go down there and let me know how you felt about not only the choices, but the cards themselves and what your choices would be if you did a video like this, because there are plenty of media properties out there. I considered Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon and all kinds of stuff that I would honestly, unashamedly, and admittedly love to see Magic cards for, and there's probably plenty of those kinds of things for you too. But let's wrap this bad boy up. If you want to, you can like the video. It would really help me out a lot, I guess. You can also sub to the channel or sub to the sandwich, whichever one you want to do. It's fine with me. It's delicious. One way or the other. You can check out the Patreon. That's how I get paid around here. AdSense is a couple of bucks a month, but honestly, Patreon is how I'm able to continue this enterprise in any way whatsoever. So I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested. It's just $1 a month to support the channel. But that is, of course, Allski Kowalski, as well as Itski Lewitsky, and we're done's over this one, so I guess I'll catch you cats later. I am, of course, Dev from The Place, in case you forgot. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.